It was a crisp spring afternoon in Arlington, Virginia. American flags waved gently in the breeze above a military appreciation event hosted by President Donald Trump. The audience was a mix of active duty personnel, veterans, and their families. Cameras clicked and buzzed as Trump approached the podium, greeting the enthusiastic crowd with a wave. At the very back, away from the spotlight, stood a woman in her late 70s. She wore a faded leather flight jacket, her silver hair pulled tightly into a bun. Her posture was upright, unmistakably military. Her name was Calista Wren, a retired Air Force pilot and among the first women to fly combat missions in her time. She hadn't come for the cameras or the speeches. Hidden beneath her jacket was an old envelope, yellowed and soft around the edges. Her husband, also a pilot, had given it to her 40 years earlier before departing on his final mission. He had asked her to deliver it, if and only when the time felt right. Until this day, she had never felt ready. Trump's voice echoed across the field, expressing gratitude to those who served and highlighting the ideals of duty, honor, and sacrifice. As he spoke, Callista's hand trembled slightly against the flap of the envelope. Her eyes never left the man behind the podium. She had never cared much for politicians, still didn't. But this moment wasn't political. It was personal. A message long held in silence was finally ready to be heard. With the crowd erupting in applause, Calista began moving forward, each step filled with growing resolve. As she navigated through the rows of attendees, her eyes moved from young cadets to elderly veterans to widows, proudly displaying medals. But her thoughts weren't with the present. They were steeped in memory. She remembered the last time she saw her husband, Captain Julian Wren, beside his F-4 Phantom in the humid air of Southeast Asia. Calm and composed, he had kissed her forehead and placed a single envelope in her hand. "If anything happens and the time feels right, promise me you'll deliver this," he had said, locking eyes with her. She had honored that promise in silence, locking the letter away, unopened, unread. After the notice came, missing in action, presumed dead, Calista buried herself in flight training and later command roles. She earned her wings, built her own legacy, but the envelope remained untouched. Now, decades later, something in Trump's speech had struck a chord. It wasn't the man, it was the words. Some sacrifices never get recognized, but they're never forgotten. As she reached the front row, Secret Service agents took notice of the decorated uniform beneath her jacket. One agent approached and asked politely, "Ma'am, do you have a seat?" "I need to speak with the president," she replied firmly. "I have something for him." The seriousness in her tone made the agent pause. He exchanged a look with another officer, then passed along a message up the chain. At the podium, President Trump paused mid-sentence as an aide whispered in his ear. His expression shifted, curiosity, then clarity, as he nodded and looked toward Calista. "Told we have a very special guest here today," Trump announced. "A retired Air Force pilot. One of our pioneers." Then he looked directly at her. "Miss Wren, is it?" Calista stood motionless for a moment, surprised. The crowd slowly made space as the president motioned for her to come forward. Cell, phones lifted, voices hushed. With the envelope still gripped tightly in her hand, she walked with measured steps. Trump extended his hand. You served this country when most women were told they couldn't. It's an honor. She shook his hand, her grip carrying something deeper than formality. Mr. President, thank you. But I'm not here for recognition. I came to deliver something. Something I've held for 40 years. She handed over the fragile envelope. Trump hesitated, then took it gently. What is it? He asked. My husband, Captain Julian Wren, MIA, 1975. He wrote it for a future leader. He never said who. I never opened it. But when you spoke of unseen sacrifices today, I knew it was time. The crowd had gone quiet. A nearby camera caught Trump's face as he studied the letter. You never read it? He asked. She shook her head. Some messages aren't for us. They're just meant to find the right heart. Trump's expression grew solemn. For a moment, all politics disappeared. Just two people connected by history and loss. I'll read it privately, he said gently, and I'll honor what's inside. That's all I ever hoped for, she replied. That night, Trump withdrew from the post-event festivities to a quiet lounge in the White House. On the desk beside a photo of his father lay the envelope, untouched. He stared at it for a long time before carefully opening it. Inside was a folded piece of lined stationery, the handwriting neat and precise. To the leader of this nation, if this letter reaches you, it means I didn't make it home. I gave everything I had for this country, and I ask just one thing. Find her, Calista, and remind the world that sacrifice doesn't end on the battlefield. Trump's grip on the paper tightened. This was no love letter. This was a mission. He turned to the second page. More shocking still. It listed coordinates, mission logs, and names. One name was underlined, Lieutenant Mason D. Harlan. Beside it, the word survived. Trump sat back, stunned. This wasn't just farewell, it was a clue. The next morning, Trump summoned his military liaison. I need a background check. Mason D. Harlan, Vietnam-era pilot, possible survivor. Any reason? The liaison asked. Trump handed him the second page. It might help bring closure to a family and keep a promise alive. Later, Calista received a call from the White House. We'd like to speak with you. In person. She hesitated. Why now? Because your husband's letter may have just changed everything. In a quiet room inside the White House, Trump greeted her personally with 2 mugs of black coffee. No press, no staff, just us. She gave him a faint smile. Did you read it? He nodded. It's more than a letter, it's a trail. We're looking for Mason D. Harlan. She stared at the scanned page. Julian always believed someone saw what happened. If Mason survived, then Julian didn't die alone. 3 days later, the liaison returned. We found a David Mason, lives in rural Montana, changed his name in '81, no public record before that. That's him, Trump said quietly. Calista was flown out with a security escort. As they soared over the Rockies, her heart pounded. In a way it hadn't for decades. At a small wooden cabin, a white-bearded man with sharp eyes opened the door. "Mason?" she asked. He froze. "Calista Wren?" She nodded. And for the first time in 45 years, the last witness to Julian's final mission faced the woman who had never stopped waiting. Inside, at a worn kitchen table, Mason poured tea. "I should have come sooner," he said, his voice thick. "Tell me what happened," she whispered. He looked out the window. "Julian saved me. Our jets were hit. He forced my chute open before his exploded. He steered the aircraft away from a village before it went down." Calista closed her eyes. "He always said people mattered more than orders. When I got rescued," Mason continued, "they told me to stay quiet. Optics, politics. His name got buried under red tape." Listening nearby, Trump felt something ignite. This story had to be told. Back in Washington, he made a call. "Draft a plan. We're going to hold a ceremony, not for me, for Captain Julian Wren." Calista was speechless. "It's long overdue," Trump said. Military officials gathered. Trump personally wrote his remarks. Calista held Julian's letter in her hands. "He never wanted medals," she whispered. "Just the truth." Then, "We'll give him both," Trump replied. During a nationally televised event, Trump stood before a packed crowd. "Today, we honor a man forgotten by history, but remembered through love." He read Julian's letter aloud. Calista stood nearby, trembling, proud. At the end, Trump turned to her. "Calista, thank you for carrying this message all these years. Today, we make sure the world never forgets." He held up a small velvet box. "For his sacrifice, the United States posthumously awards Captain Julian Wren the Medal of Valor." He placed it in her hands. Her fingers shook. Her lips trembled. "I can't bring him back," Trump said softly, "but I promise his legacy will live on." Applause thundered. Calista looked skyward and whispered, "You did it, Julian." In the weeks that followed, she received hundreds of letters from widows, veterans, and children of the fallen. One note read, "My father flew with your husband. He always said Julian was the bravest man he ever knew." Each message helped close a wound in her heart. At the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Calista traced Julian's name with trembling fingers. Mason stood beside her. Trump arrived quietly. No cameras, just silence. "I waited so long for this," she whispered. "Some peace," Trump said gently, "is worth the wait." Later, he announced an Air Force scholarship in Julian Wren's name, dedicated to young women pursuing aviation. Captain Wren believed anyone could fly. Now they will. At the first awards ceremony, a 19-year-old recipient hugged Calista. "Because of you, I believe I can fly too." Calista smiled through tears. Then it was all worth it. At an air show, a little girl tugged her sleeve. "Are you the flying lady?" Calista laughed. "I guess I am." The girl handed her a red scarf. "This is for your husband." Calista wrapped it around her wrist. "Thank you, sweetheart." Months later, over coffee at the White House, Trump said, "You know, your story changed more than you think." She tilted her head. It reminded people what real sacrifice looks like. It made us feel again. Julian would have liked that, she replied. At a private veterans' dinner, one chair was left empty. The name card read, Captain Julian Wren. Beside it, a photo of him and Calista in uniform. Trump raised his glass. To those who gave everything, and to those who never gave up.